Hi, good morning. I'm here with a very special guest at the Ryder Cup at Hazeltine. Would you like to introduce yourselves to us and tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Good morning. I'm David Leadbetter, a coach of, I suppose, some infamous. Let's put it this way. I've been known to teach a few good players anyhow. So through the years, I've been fortunate, and we're here for the 41st Ryder Cup here at Hazeltine, and really excited. I'm doing some BBC work and also working with Rafa Bayo. So that's my story.
So, David, you've been involved with so many Ryder Cups over the years and so many different players, and it must throw up a host of wonderful memories. Have you got any that just spring to mind?
Yeah, I've had some. It's been really exciting. I mean, obviously the last few years for the Europeans, I mean, it's been tremendous the way they've played. I have at times actually had players on both teams, which has always been an interesting mix, shall we say. But I think, I remember Nick Faldo's hole-in-one against Paul Azinger at the Belfry, going back a number of years. I obviously spent a lot of time with Sir Nick, as he's now referred to, or known as. He had a fantastic Ryder Cup record, playing with a variety of partners, from Monty to Woozy. I remember vividly his match against Curtis Strange at Oak Hill.
Yeah, that was a beauty, wasn't it?
That was a tussle. Obviously the great match they had at Valderrama. There's so many really. It's when you think back in terms of I think just being, say, at Medina was amazing. Really, the fact that with Justin playing so well. I mean, there's so many subplots in the Ryder Cup, as we know, and so hopefully we're expecting something similar this week.
Well, when you get to a tournament of this stature, an event like this, I mean, this is the pinnacle of most players' careers. I mean, how much input as a coach can you realistically have when you are this close to the off?
Well, it's always interesting. I mean, people always ask us, what are we actually doing at tournaments, and especially big events, and major events like the Ryder Cup or Opens or any such types of tournaments. And really, you're there more for support, for trying to maybe make last-minute tweaks, as Sir Nick always referred to them as. Nothing major. I mean, hopefully coming into this week, certainly with all the pressure, I mean, they've got their golf games with them, these players. I mean, it's hard to find it out here, and we've seen in the past where players have really struggled when they've come in here not playing well, because confidence is a big thing. And when you've got the pressure, I mean, the spotlight is really on you. I mean, right, if you play in a major and you play poorly, you miss a cut. Here, you play poorly, you lose a point. It's certainly well chronicled, isn't it? So essentially, it's just more for support, confidence, more than anything else, than just give these players a little pat on the back before they're off, and hopefully they're off and running.
And then it must be quite strange, as you said, you're working for 5 Live, so potentially you're going to be out there on the golf course broadcasting and commentating on players that you've worked with over the years, and I mean that's a different twist on things, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's always interesting. I mean, you have to sort of wear, as you well know, you've got to wear different hats, and so I am really here broadcasting this week, but I will keep an eye on things for sure, and I spent a little time on the range here with Rafa this week, and he's playing very well. He's very confident and very excited. Certainly, this is his first Ryder Cup, and it's interesting. I was talking with Darren Clark yesterday. It's almost part of the Europeans' DNA. This Ryder Cup. I mean, when they get on tour, I mean, almost the first thing they want to do is they're thinking in terms of playing on the Ryder Cup team rather than maybe winning tournaments or winning, even the Open, where it's a little different for the Americans. The Americans, they're sort of players that come together every 2 years, and they put these 12 individuals together, and they don't always necessarily form a great team. But having said that, they may win this week, but certainly you expect the pendulum to swing at some stage. But for the Europeans, I mean, it means such an awful lot. This is, as you say, this is the pinnacle of their career, and and I don't think it ever gets old for people like Lee Westwood, who certainly is a veteran and is in his 10th Ryder Cup now. So he still seems just as excited as when he played his first one, I think, when he was 23.
Well, what are your thoughts on captain's picks? Do you think they're a good thing?
I think it gives them a little leeway to get players who they think should be on the team but aren't for whatever reason, maybe an injury at some stage or something of that nature. I mean, they're always a little bit contentious, these picks. Certainly, with the Americans, with their last-minute pick, it's interesting. I mean, just looking at the golf course, you would think it was actually absolutely perfectly set up for Bubba Watson. I mean, this course is long, it's fairly soft. If there's any golf course which would be perfectly suited for him, but certainly he's not playing. But so I think picks. I mean, all I would like to see is that they sort of the rules are such that both teams have the same number of picks, and then they put their teams out at the same time. I mean, they do this in football when you have to put your squad forward for the final squad a couple of weeks before the tournament starts. I mean, I think it would be nice if they did the same here. I suppose it does create a little bit of interest right up to the 11th hour, I suppose, especially with the Americans, not knowing who's on the team. But I mean, it is what it is. But I think picks are good. But I suppose it's just a matter of really how many and. Look, if the team wins, I mean, if you look at sort of an Ian Poulter, I mean, obviously he's been a great pick through the years when he hasn't made the team. So.
And do you think there's any great sort of secret to the dynamics of a successful foursomes pairing?
When you look at, I suppose when you look at the foursomes pairings, it's always a difficult one. I mean, they don't play it. It's not as if it's a format they play very often. Ideally, I suppose you want to try to match somebody with similar type games. I mean, I think it's always maybe a little bit difficult if you're playing maybe out of your comfort zone, whether a long hitter all of a sudden has to hit the long iron into a par 4 where they're not used to doing it, or whether they have to maybe, I think you certainly want to try to match players. I think in 4-ball, I think you could have different types of players, maybe a steady player and a player that makes a lot of birdies playing together. But the foursomes, which historically the strange thing is that although they certainly play it more in the UK than probably any other part of the world, Britain and Ireland, but yet the Americans seem to have, they seem to be stars at that format. They played very, very well in the foursomes through the years. So, whether there's an absolute formula, I mean, they can always second guess these things, and we all know that sometimes it's a little bit of a intuition and instinct on the part of the captain, and their geniuses when they put players together. But when you look at the American team of Jordan Spieth and Patrick Reed, I mean, that was an exceptional pairing, and they seem to get on very, very well. There's good chemistry there, so there has to be some sort of chemistry there for sure. And it's I suppose I say once again, after the fact, you're a genius if you choose the right grouping. I remember years ago when Sir Nick Faldo played with David Guilford, and it was a terrible, terrible pairing. I mean, they didn't, just the personalities didn't blend, and two sort of quiet personalities, and so you never quite know.
And finally, do you think it's right that the holders retain the trophy if it's a tie?
That's an interesting question. I think it's been that's the way it's been done for many, many years. I think that I personally think it's actually a good thing. I think you need to go out and win it. I mean, I think if the team has played well enough to tie, I mean, it's almost as if it's a tie is virtually a win, but it's what it boils down to, the fact is that the match is really, really close, and as we all know, over the past few years, there's only been, for the most part, I mean, there have been a couple of, let's say, whitewashes, but thrashings, but they've been fairly close, and if it is a tie, I mean, that's a very exciting, thing that's happening at the time, and so, and hopefully this is going to be a close one as well. I mean, that's what you want. You want good competition, and that's what competition played in the right atmosphere. I know there's always at the Ryder Cup there's this little underlying niggles and innuendos, etc., which I suppose it adds to the little spice of the thing. So it's not all bad, but hopefully it's played in the right spirit, and the crowds. I mean, we're never going to have partisan crowds this week, especially up here in Hazeltine. I remember, I mean, having been here for for the US Open, and when Payne Stewart won a couple of PGAs. I mean, they are very, very vocal, these people up here. They love their golf. They don't have much of a season. It's only about a 5-month season, and they're starved for golf. They don't have any tournament golf up here. So the crowds, I think, are going to be the Americans' 50th club, that's for sure. So it's going to be a great week all in all, and as we do every couple of years, we really look forward to it. And to me, the Ryder Cup is one of the spectacles in sport, never mind golf. To me, it's just the international flavour, the competition, and just the expectation. I think it's wonderful. So we'll hopefully have a great Ryder Cup.
Well, David, you were saying there a moment ago that your daughter Hallie has just turned professional and she's going off to the Ladies European Tour qualifying school. So please wish her all the best from us.
Thank you.
And thanks for spending some time with us, David. I appreciate it.